everybody, and welcome back to Fantasy Football. This is the penultimate week, so the second to last week, and we actually did pretty well in the week, which is hilarious because I once again forgot to change my team. I missed out on 6 points, unfortunately, with Ake there. But I figured if I'd have actually probably thought about it, I probably would have put Lukaku in, who got injured and wouldn't have got me any points. I probably wouldn't have made Sane captain and would have missed out on probably quite a few points there. So yeah, in the end, actually did pretty well. Pushed us back up to really close to that 500,000 marker. Maybe really good last week, could tip the balance and get us under 500,000. So I will 100% remember to do my team because I'm going to do it at the end of this video. So yeah, loads and loads of games to kind of go through. A lot of them were absolutely terrible. I watched Match of the Day Saturday night, mostly because Palace won, and that doesn't happen that often, so I make sure I watch it when they do. And what struck me was that I thought Palace actually played the best football out of any of these teams. Yeah, I just was absolutely staggered by how bad these teams were. Now, obviously, at this point, you have a mixture of either immense pressure on teams, a la Swansea, a la Southampton, maybe, or you have teams who are just completely on the beach. But you have results like West Brom beating Spurs, and don't get me wrong, like fair play to West Brom, but Spurs were awful. Like, they were so bad. And I look at Spurs this season, and I mean, they're into third now. You know, pushing Liverpool down a bit. Liverpool could unbelievably drop out of the top four, you know. But I look at Spurs and I think like they have no hope in winning the league. Oh, go away, Java. God, I hate Java. Spurs just they're just a million miles away from winning the league. And don't get me wrong, like most of these teams are, even Liverpool, they've been fantastic, but like their form recently, which I guess you could attest to them concentrating on Europe, to be fair. But the thing about the league is that you have to be able to have a squad that can challenge in the league and Europe, you know. You can't often just do one of them. So if you want to be a top club, you've got to have that squad. And when Liverpool are playing like Dominic Solanke and Danny Ings in their games, it's no wonder they're drawing with West Brom and Stoke and Everton, you know, because they just don't have good enough backup players. Their first 11, I think, is the second best team in the country right now, and capable of beating Man City, as we have seen, but their squad is very, very weak, so they need to reinforce next season to be there. But Spurs for me, and I think Liverpool will have that money next season because I think they're buying into what Klopp's doing. But Spurs, with their new stadium coming, I don't think they have the money. I think there'll be some big bids for their players this season because once again they're not going to win anything this season. And you know, Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, Son, they're fantastic players who I think would, you know, easily get a place in most of the teams in the league, if not the world, as in, you know, the Spanish teams, Bayern Munich, those sort of teams, and they're sort of players, sort of teams who could put in a massive bid. You know, if Man City put in £100 million bid for Harry Kane, are Spurs really going to be able to turn it down? Like, honestly, I don't see it happening. So I've said before that I felt Spurs are overrated. I don't think they're a bad football team. Like, clearly they're a very good football team, but they don't seem to be able to I don't know, just something happens to them those methods and overtraining them, and by the end of the season they are just completely exhausted. Or the fact that there's a lack of rotation in the squad, and the focal point being like Harry Kane, if he's not, and he clearly isn't fit, by the way, and it boggles my mind that they went into this season without a suitable backup for him. I don't get football teams. I'll talk about it in a bit, but I really don't think. I really think that being a football manager is a lot simpler than a lot of people make it out to be, And well, I'll go into it in a bit anyway. I'll talk about it. Let's not get off topic, but anyway. So yeah, Spurs and I watched this and I was like, Crystal Palace. It was a great goal by Shaqiri, free kick, but Crystal Palace really started to dominate from then. Zaha won Player of the Month, which is amazing. I don't think he also won Player of the Season for Crystal Palace in the awards, but I mean clearly Crystal Palace are a Wilfried Zaha team. That is a little bit harsh on some of the other players in the team. MacArthur's played brilliantly, Milicevic played brilliantly, Patrick Van Aanholt is fast becoming one of my favourite players in the squad. Always thought he's a very good player, and I feel bad because we used to have we do still do have Suarez left back, and he got injured in a car accident and nearly went out the game, and Patrick Van Aanholt, we picked him up because of that, and he's just kind of made that left back place his own really, and he's done brilliantly. But just watching these games, the Brian Man United one, Man United, I mean, oh my god, they're just so bad. I just don't understand how these teams can be so bad. Like, okay, let's get into it. Right, so I play Football Manager 2018, okay? Don't get me wrong, okay? I'm well aware that being a manager on Football Manager and being a manager in real life are two very different things, but I have a day job. My day job is a manager of a cinema, and one of the things which we have to do on a daily basis is plan ahead. Look ahead at things, think about our staffing levels and stuff like that, and how we go. Now everybody has to work within their constraints in some ways, but the big clubs in the Premier League, it's Man United especially, but Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, they have the ability to go out and buy a player if they need a player in that position. And what kind of bothers me a little bit, and I think Chelsea have been a bit better at it, is the fact that they just don't buy the right players, and everybody seems to be able to see it apart from the people at the club. Now, if I'm running a big football club, even any Premier League football club, my budget for staff is, I could get any staff member I wanted really, because you can pay that money. I could have teams and teams of analysts going through data. I could employ the best scouts there are, and yet these teams somehow still end up with players who are not very good or not the right players that the manager wants, and I can't work out how the hell this happens constantly. Apologies for that. I just don't know what goes on at these football clubs, because I look at Crystal Palace and I go, they fucked up at the beginning of the season, big time. They appointed Frank de Boer. They made a mistake. They didn't back him or change. They thought that just bringing a manager could just change everything and change the players into suddenly this passing side. It didn't work. But they got Roy Hodgson, and Roy Hodgson went about and didn't manage to spend very much money at all, really, or if anything, really. And he got the best out of the players he had and played the style of football that worked and focused on his star player, to play, and we started to play good football. Even the games we lost, most of them anyway, we played pretty good football, and we dug ourselves out, and the chances are we're probably going to finish around mid-table. We've got West Brom, who are relegated as the last game. We should win that, which means we should at least kind of finish at about 11th. Jesus. Potentially could finish 10th, if Newcastle lose to Chelsea, and they've lost 4 games in a row, so that's potential. And if you'd have said to me at the beginning of the season, would I take 10th place of Crystal Palace, I obviously would have bit your hand off. And I don't feel like Roy Hodgson is some sort of tactical genius. So how come Roy Hodgson can get the most out of his squad that he's had? And the chances are, if Roy Hodgson was there at the beginning of the season, and those 7 games, if he gave him 7 extra games, would he have been able to pick up enough points to challenge Burnley? 10 points from 7 games? I think he probably could have done that. So the chances are we could have finished in a European place if Roy Hodgson was there from the beginning of the season. Now, how come a manager like Jose Mourinho can have all these superstar players, probably any sort of coaching team he wants, any sort of recruitment team he wants, and still end up with an utter shambles of a team? I just don't get it. I don't understand, because I look at Guardiola, okay, at Man City, and clearly it's not Guardiola on his own who has turned Man City into this world-class team. Their recruitment has been spot on. I don't think they've had a player who he's recruited who has turned out really badly. People kind of slagged off Bravo, and it didn't quite work out, but they didn't spend a lot of money on him. People have or were slagging off Otamendi, but he's come good, certainly alongside Company. I don't really know who else there is who's been a massive flop, and I think that when I look at them and I go, people can turn around and go, oh, they've overspent on players, but the players they brought have all been really good, and they were obviously the players who they identified and they needed, and they were going to play in this style, and the result is a team who could potentially get 100 points in the Premier League, over 100 goals in the Premier League, the best defence in the Premier League, which if you're going by goals against, it's the best defence, a goal difference that smashes any other team in the league. And I think, how is this so difficult for people to understand? Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, as I said, the squad is poor, but the team is great. He identified players he wanted. Virgil van Dijk, yeah, they overpaid for him, but they got him. You look at Mane, they overpaid, but they got him. Salah, again, in the market at that time, they overpaid. Clearly, he's now worth what they paid, at least. But at the time, people said they overpaid, but they got the player they wanted. Man United go and spend 100 million on Paul Pogba, and have no idea where to play him, no idea what's going on. I'm just what is even going on? How does this even work? And don't get me wrong, I don't think Pogba's a bad player or anything like that. I don't think he's a £100 million player, and you have to overspend as a Premier League club, especially Man United, because everyone knows you've got money. That's one of the reasons why Man City had to spend so much to get people like Mendy and stuff like that, because everyone knew how much money they've got, so they just chuck the price up. But I don't understand from a tactical point of view, how a club like Man United get it so wrong and play such bland, boring football. I just don't understand it. If I was a Man United fan, I would be pulling my hair out. At least as a Crystal Palace fan, my expectation level of this team is to finish mid-table, and we're probably going to do that, and it's great, and we actually play quite good football, and Wolves Zaha is obviously a pleasure to watch for any team. And I look at Man United, and they've got Alexis Sanchez, and they've got Martial, and they've got Juan Mata, and they've got Paul Pogba, and I'm this team should be this just attacking force, and they're just utter crap. And I just don't know. I don't know what happened is, like, Jose Mourinho is one man, okay? They're, like, most Premier League managers don't even take, like, coaching sessions as such. You know, they'll have, like, assistants or coaches who will focus on that sort of thing. Sure, I guess they have the overall vision of the team and how it plays, but they will have people who talk about tactics and, you know, analysts and all that sort of stuff. So how do they still get it so wrong, you know? How does that happen? Is it because they just surround themselves with the wrong people? Or is it like just symptomatic of a more of a kind of dictatorship where even if people are saying to them about something, they just ignore it because they think they know best? I don't really know. You know, we've seen this season that the 3 promoted clubs are staying up. You know, Brighton, Newcastle and Huddersfield. Teams which didn't really spend a lot of money. I think Brighton probably spent the most. Huddersfield and Newcastle spent like nothing basically for, you know, a promoted team and stayed up. But Newcastle in 10th, Rafa Benitez obviously doing a great job. Just one of those managers who gets the team he has and they just, you know, win games. Sure, they're on a shocking run right now, but they're kind of on the beach, you know, in a way. But when I see someone like David Moyes at West Ham, or I see like I'm just like, how, you know, how is this? How do football managers get things so wrong? I'd be fascinated to know. I'd be fascinated to. Yeah, the problem is, I think, is that, like, the football managers can't be very honest about things, you know, because, you know, you can't really have a football manager who's not going to come out and be like, hey, you know what, I fucked up at, you know, Southampton or whatever. You know, this was the reason why it happened. Because it's going to affect their future employment, you know. It's like you're not going to walk into a job interview with a new job and they'll be like, oh, so you worked for so-and-so for 3 years, yeah, why'd you leave? You're not going to turn around and go, well, actually, I kind of left before they were going to fire me because I just became really bad at the job because of X, Y, and Z. And, yeah, as a result, I felt like I had to resign that job and get another one. You're going to be like, oh, well, I just felt like it was time to move on and look for a new experience or a new, like, journey for me to and something else to learn, and you're not going to say it. So I feel like, you know, there's not many managers who are actually honest when they're asked, I guess, about kind of what goes wrong at football clubs and stuff like that. But, you know, one of the greatest managers of all time, if not the greatest manager of all time, Alex Ferguson, who is sadly in hospital at the minute, and hopefully he gets better. But I'm not a Man United fan, as I said. I'm a Crystal Palace fan, but this is the thing. You know, people talk about like, oh, you know, the culture's different in Spain or in Italy or whatever, and you know, the coaches approaches differently. That's why the Premier League goes for foreign managers, because English managers are just no good at like that sort of stuff. But like Alex Ferguson as a Scottish manager, you know, he was not a cultured player like Guardiola was. You know, he was not a you know, he didn't subscribe to kind of like the fanciest of football, but what he managed to do was, I guess, motivate. Tactically, he just got things right, and a lot of the time he brought in very good players. He had a few hiccups and a few times where it didn't work, but like overall, like his teams played very entertaining football. He brought through young players at the club who like loved the club and stayed at the club mostly their entire career. And I don't know if there's any player who really has a bad word to say about him. There's players who fell out with him, but I think even those ones respect him as what he is. So how come he got it so right for so many seasons at Man United, and yet other managers at other football clubs just play so, their teams play so badly? Is it the players? Is it a case of if the players buy into the manager? And I guess in Ferguson's case, when you're winning, it's easier to buy into it, than when you're losing. But was it a management type of thing? And if the players buy into what you're doing, then that works better. And if they don't, if they want to get rid of you, then they just stop playing. But I feel like at Spurs, Pochettino has the respect of his players, and they seem to like him. They always seem to say good things about him, and yet they just played like a trash in a lot of their games recently. So I don't know what it is. Swansea, another one where Carlos Carvajal came in and people were raving about him. Who's going to keep Swansea up? But Swansea are all but relegated. They need a 10-goal swing in their last game to they need to win and get 10 goals goal difference, 10 extra goals goal difference in order to stay up. It's unlikely it's going to happen. I'm 99% sure it's not, but obviously there is still a chance. But Swansea just looks so bad against Southampton, and in the previous game against Bournemouth, I think it was, like Bournemouth were on the beach, they couldn't even score a goal. Bournemouth, like, they lost their last 3 games. They were safe, and that was it really for them. And like Swansea just couldn't muster anything, and I'm like, again, they seem to like their manager. They're in a predicament. Is it just a psychological thing, or I don't know. It fascinates me to look at this, because I don't know why some managers get it so wrong and why some managers make it look so easy. It's not a case of they've just got better players, because I don't believe that Man City have got better players than any other team. Their players look better now, but on paper, I don't think City have got a stronger team than Man United, or possibly Chelsea, or possibly Liverpool. I just think that Guardiola has got the most out of those players. Like Raheem Sterling at the beginning of this season, would anybody have said that he would have scored 18 goals? I think it is, maybe more by now, and into double figures for assists as well. You wouldn't have, because he was looking like he was going to be a player on the way out potentially. But Guardiola got that much out of him, and I don't know what it is that happens at football clubs that they can go one way and they can go another, because in a Premier League football club there's so many backroom staff, there's so many people working behind the scenes that I don't understand how they can even let it happen. It boggles my mind. It really does. It boggles my mind that Arsenal can beat Burnley 5-0 at home and play like world beaters, and they can go away to Leicester and this year they haven't, I think, got even a single point on the road. Is that right? Or maybe just a win. What is that psychological problem there, or is it a tactical problem? Or it can't be a playing home and playing away in a football match. I can understand that there is an advantage to playing at home, but it shouldn't be that much. Come on, it should not be that much of an advantage. So I don't know. Is it, with Arsenal, you could argue that it's perhaps down to some leadership, in their team. It does seem weak on that side of it. But I don't know. I guess that's the reason why Arsene Wenger's leaving at the end of the season. I will say that I was a little bit wrong about Aubameyang. I think when he joined, I think the only person who scored more goals than him in 2018 in the Premier League is Salah. And I think if they get a new manager in who can play with Lacazette and Aubameyang, that's a very potent strike force, and I think they might forget about Sanchez quite quickly if they can get those two firing. So I think Arsenal have got, like, for me, they're my dark horses to challenge City, because I feel like a new manager freshening things up. I feel like they have the nucleus of a good team. If a new manager could bring in like a central midfielder probably and a central defender who are leaders and experienced players, it won't be cheap, but if they could do that, then I think they've got a team that could potentially challenge. You know, you see that 5-0 against Burnley and they looked really good. But then you see that 3-1 against Leicester and they look really bad. So, you know, who knows? Who knows? I just, you know, West Ham 0, Man United 0. I mean, I feel it's weird to say, but I feel a bit sorry for Man United fans, because I feel like since Ferguson left, their club has just been a shambles. Like, they've been through, what, 3 managers? Moyes, Van Gaal and now Mourinho, and none of them have looked like they're a fit for Man United in any way, shape or form. Pochettino, just calling it now, there's a guy who I think would do well, but pretty much any other manager in the Premier League I think would have got more points this season than Jose Mourinho. I don't know. I don't think Mourinho's a bad manager. I've just said before that I think there are certain clubs that fit his psyche and his presence, and I don't think Man United was it, and I don't think Real Madrid was it. Whereas like Inter Milan and you know, Chelsea the first time, and Porto, they really did fit well with him. And maybe it's something about that is, you know, does the club fit the manager as well? You know, maybe that's one reason why, you know, Roy Hodgson's done well at Palace, because, you know, he's fitted well, but when he went to Liverpool that time, you know, he wasn't really that successful. Now, to be fair, before Klopp, there wasn't really any successful Liverpool managers really for a long time, so since probably Benitez, so I kind of understand that in a way. And you know, Antonio Conte is not a bad manager just because Chelsea potentially won't finish in a Champions League place, and yeah, you know, if Eddie Howe, for example, got a bigger job, would he be as good, you know, than as he is at Bournemouth? Who knows? You know, it depends, doesn't it, really, I guess. So maybe that's something to do with it, is the manager being a fit, but you got to feel that, like, these people who do the recruitment of managers or players or whatever, they get paid a lot of money, and they seem to just see the most, they just don't seem to know the first thing about football. I mean, they do interviews, but like, I don't know what it is. You know, if they, I guess it's all very, very easy to blame a manager, and maybe a lot of the time it's not actually the manager's fault. You know, maybe at Man United, Jose Mourinho, there are things going on behind the scenes that none of us know about, which is causing the issues there. And you know, also in another season, maybe if Man City weren't as good as they were this season, and maybe they were on like 84 points, maybe Man United would have tried a bit harder in these last few games. Maybe they're on the beach a little bit here as well. They've got a FA Cup final to think about coming up, and they're probably just like, well, it's not, you know, we don't need to exert ourselves. We're gonna pretty much finish second or third at the worst, which doesn't matter too much. But I guess they want second. And if they were closer to Man City, would it have pushed them on a little bit more to you know, spur the players on a little bit, you know, especially that like 1-0 against West Brom and stuff. And yeah, you know, I guess there's there's lots of variables there, isn't there? And I mean, I guess like footballers are people at the end of the day. No matter how much they get paid, they're still prone to feeling the same way as footballers, as people. Sorry. And there are some days I'll go into work and I'll be like, I'm really not up for this. I'm gonna do my job, obviously, but like, I'm not really gonna put in anything extra because I just, that's my mood today, as it were. And yeah, sure, maybe there's an argument to say that that's where Jose Mourinho comes in to motivate and stuff like that. But I often feel like when that whistle blows, as much as the manager can stand on the sideline or make substitutions, all the work you can put in that week, I guess, can come down to the fact that whether or not a player is going to listen to the instructions you've given him, whether or not he is going to have a good day or a bad day. A mistake here, a mistake there, which happens, can cost you the game, I guess. And I guess with fine margins, you can have those issues, but honestly, it just shocked me how bad at football some of these teams are. And watching Swansea, they don't even look like they belong in the Championship. Same with Stoke, to be fair. Watching Stoke against Arsenal, you could see Shaqiri was, obviously a cut above, but the rest of the team just, I don't even know. They made so many bad purchases. We're talking about recruitment, and they have been awful with recruitment. I don't know how much Mark Hughes is down to that. Everybody's blaming Mark Hughes for them getting relegated, and clearly there's a point where Mark Hughes is culpable for some aspects of it, without a doubt. I don't know if recruitment, this is the thing, sometimes you can see that managers don't have a lot of say in recruitment. They're obviously, I guess there are some managers who have, the final word on recruitment. They give their chairman a list of players they want, the chairman goes out and gets it. And there are some teams, I think, where it's kind of like, hey, we want to bring in this guy, what's your opinion on it? And then even if the manager's happy or unhappy, it gets done. And I don't know what the case was at Stoke, but they had some terrible purchases. Sado Berahino, I think it was Gianluca Imbrelli or something like that. Kevin Wimmer, like big money for those players, all over 10 million, and they're nowhere to be seen in that squad. So I guess that's what it comes down to sometimes. But also, like, this is the other thing which I just don't get either, is why we don't see youth players in the Premier League anymore. Like, that fascinates me. Like, these teams have money pouring out of their ear holes, and like, it seems to me like a no-brainer to set up a good academy to scout young players and bring them in, especially in your area, but also further afield, and then have that as a system to be able to bring through. So you turn around and say, and there are some teams in the Premier League who do bring through young players, and I understand that. Actually, I don't really understand. I don't understand what the concept is behind turning around and going, this like 21-year-old youth team player, he's a bit young, but then, they can go out and buy like a 21, 22-year-old who's never played in the league and be like, yeah, this guy's really good. It always kind of like, always makes me wonder, like, who is doing this recruitment. Southampton have a really good academy system. Like, surely there are some players there who are hungry enough to want to come in and play. Palace have a good academy system. I've seen a couple of players come through, but only because of the injuries, And I turn around and think, like, we paid like 30 million for Benteke. There has to be an academy striker better than him. It would not be difficult right now. and instead we went off and brought Sorloth, who might be good, might not, but he never plays any games, so we're never going to know. Because they just stick with Benteke up front, even though, and I love Christian Benteke. He's like a big bear, he's like a big, you just want to give him a hug and tell him it's going to be okay, but the guy's got problems. Like, his confidence is shot to pieces, and I don't really think he fits the style. I don't think he's mobile enough. If we have like Zaha, Townsend, and other like very mobile players, we're talking about a good pace there, and Benteke, it doesn't really work out, so I don't think he'll be there next season, but I do like the guy, but I just don't really think like there's got to be like a young player coming through. I just, it's like Man United. Why did you buy Anthony Martial for 20 odd million when you had Rashford coming through? You can't really accommodate both of them very well. Again, so many questions which are never going to be answered, I guess. We'll see. I'm going to do a big end of season review, I guess, next week. Mostly everything is kind of decided now in terms of who's getting relegated. I guess the only thing left is the Liverpool-Chelsea. Can Chelsea pip Liverpool into fourth place? Liverpool just need a draw. There's no way that goal difference is going to be brought back. And a draw at home to Brighton, you have to imagine they're going to get that, surely. Chelsea play Newcastle. Newcastle are on a terrible run, so I think Chelsea win that game. But I think they'll probably end up on 73, and Liverpool will end up on 73 or 75. I don't see them losing to Brighton, but I guess maybe I don't think they need to rest any players. I guess they might in the worry that someone gets injured. But again, I don't think Brighton are the sort of team who are going to be putting up. They don't seem to come across to me as like a very, very physical, violent side almost. But if they're playing Burnley, I'd understand. But that's a little harsh on Burnley. But you get what I'm saying. But yeah, I'll do like an end of season review for each of the teams, because I feel like there's some teams who have had a really fantastic season. Newcastle, Brighton, Huddersfield have all had brilliant seasons. And then there's some, and Man City, obviously, Burnley, obviously. I think Everton have had an okay season in the end. And there are some teams who have just been absolutely woeful. Stoke City should never be bottom of the Premier League. It's, I don't know, West Ham United should not be in 15th. It's, I guess we'll see. I wouldn't say there's that many interesting games because everything's decided pretty much. That's the only possible thing there which could have some relevance on the league, the Liverpool-Chelsea situation. I guess we're all waiting to see Swansea beat Stoke 5-0 and Man City beat Southampton 5-0, and then Southampton, end up going down, which would be the bizarrest way I've ever seen a team go down. But again, these things could happen, you never know. Now, in terms of, there's a firework going off there, in terms of who's going to play who and why and what, well, I'm going to actually do my transfers now. It's Thursday night. Let's get rid of Lukaku for a start. And who do we want to put in? Who's going to score goals at home? Is there any team who I think is actually going to play some decent football? I guess Chelsea maybe. To be fair, they've got the Arsenal away, so I was thinking of putting Aubameyang in, but no. Arsenal away is not a good idea. Man United are home to Watford, but Lukaku's out injured, and they've been utter trash recently, so I wouldn't bet on them. You got Spurs against Leicester, Leicester just won 3-0. I guess Man City, but I've already got 3 City players and I'd rather keep them in. Not Palace, not Burnley. It's a tough one actually to say who actually might score goals. I guess from a forwards point of view, I've got 18 million, so I can get anyone. Who do I go with? Liverpool are home to Brighton. I could go with a Firmino. I could go with Salah in midfield, to be fair. Let's put in Firmino. I think I'll just keep Firmino, to be fair. And then in defence, I don't feel like I'm actually going to change much more than that, to be fair. So we'll bring in Firmino for Barnes there. I think Luton's a good choice. De Gea. I think Palace will put on a show against West Brom. I think we'll beat West Brom. I think now West Brom are down, that will hurt them. I think Palace will have a really good end of the season. So much so that I'm actually even going to make Wilf Zaha the captain. He just got Player of the Month, and I think he's gonna do well from there. I think these guys will do okay as well. So I'm actually going to keep that as the team. Perez, I guess, is Perez worth dropping? Okay, yeah, because I can get another really big striker in. So Kane's not been playing well. Spurs won 1-0, but it was Kane who scored, so we got a goal. So why not? Let's give him one last hurrah. One last go. Harry Kane, can you do it? And yeah, we're going to keep that as the team. You got Ake as the first sub if someone doesn't play. I think De Gea is a much better choice in goal. Mane is the vice captain. Harry Kane is the vice captain. Save that team. That's the team going in. Can we get down to under 100,000? Oh, 500,000, sorry. My target for the beginning of the season was under 1 million out of I don't know how many people, but oh, there we go. Nearly 6 million. I'd take that. That's like what? The top 15%, I think, maybe. But yeah, I think that's the way it goes. I hadn't really gone through many of the other matches because I didn't feel like there was anything really that interesting going on. The only interesting point was with the Swansea Southampton game, which was dire and turgid in terms of football, but there you go. Is that the only interesting thing I think was that Swansea, so the game was obviously in Swansea, sorry, and Southampton, they had booked the Marriott Hotel for their team, and then they found out, or just as they got there, they were turned away because apparently there was a virus going round, and it seemed like there was some shenanigans going on there. And Southampton had to get a hotel like an hour away from the ground, and it seemed like that hotel was basically trying to fuck over Southampton so they would lose that match. I guess from their point of view, like, they make more money from Swansea being in the Premier League, even if they're not fans of Swansea, which I'm sure they are anyway. But yeah, interesting. It reminds me of the food poisoning situation with Spurs many years ago, when Spurs were due to kind of outdo Arsenal and knock them out of the Champions League places, end up losing because half their team got food poisoning from the hotel. But yeah, I guess we'll never know really. But yeah, next week's the last week, as I said, I'll do a review of everyone's season and just, I guess, talk about how well I think they've done personally. You know, as a team. The weird thing is, I don't think there's many fans who are actually happy with the way their club did, other than probably City, obviously, Liverpool, if they were in the Champions League, I guess, perhaps. Burnley fans are probably pretty happy. Newcastle fans, I think Palace fans are happy considering everything that happened. Bournemouth fans are probably fine. It's fine. What Watford fans are probably a bit disappointed. Brighton fans are probably ecstatic, as with Huddersfield, and then everybody else I think are probably really, really unhappy. Everton fans are probably unhappy, but I don't feel like they've had as bad a season as some people have made out. I just think there's a lot going on, and I think the Sam Allardyce effect is having some problems for them, but we'll see anyway going forward what happens there. But yeah, I guess till next time guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.